Hello and welcome to Calm the Pharm podcast, where pharmacy business meets legal wisdom, minus the headache. In each episode, we share practical legal tips and real-life examples to help you run your pharmacy with confidence. I'm your host, Sarah Stoddart. Thanks very much for joining us. In this episode of Calm the Pharm podcast, I thought it'd be worthwhile talking about and reminding pharmacy owners of the need to obtain regulatory approval when you change the name of your pharmacy. Now, we are seeing a little bit of movement in the market at the moment with people changing brands and obviously arising out of the Sigma Chemist Warehouse merger, the opportunity for Sigma franchisees to leave without penalty, and of course other movements generally. But it is important that whilst you're caught up in the franchise agreements and rebranding and signage, etc., one thing that is often overlooked is the need to actually obtain regulatory approval for the change of name. So changing the name of your pharmacy can, of course, be an exciting time. But if you overlook this requirement, you are potentially exposed to financial penalties. So it is a legislative requirement in most of the Australian states for the state regulator to be notified of the change of a name of a pharmacy business and for that to be approved by the regulator. And for those states that have a register, the register needs to be updated before you can technically proceed with the change. So it is important that when you're changing your name and you have an indication of what date the change is going to occur, you get the required application or notification into the state regulator. It is also likely that the state regulator will check if the new name is registered with ASIC as a business name, and if so, that is the name that the owner is proposing to use. So if you are changing name, you not only have to make your application to the state regulator, but you also need to make sure that your new name is registered with ASIC because that is one of the supporting documents that needs to go in. The notification or application to the state regulator needs to be in the prescribed form that the state requires. So it differs from state to state. It is important you use the right form and lodge it in the correct way. It's also important that you don't use a form you might have used previously. So making sure you're always downloading the most current form from the regulator's website. In addition to notifying the state and also registering the name with ASIC, you also have to advise the Australian Department of Health and Aged Care, this is for an approved pharmacy, of the change of name. So before you can go to the Australian regulator, the department, you need to have gone through the motions with the state. So once you've registered your business name, gone through the state, you can then go to the Department of Health and using their prescribed form and providing documentation, which will include evidence of the registration of the business name and also evidence of approval from your state regulator, you can then lodge your application to the department. They will then issue an amended PBS approval certificate to show the updated name of the pharmacy business. Importantly, and we do get asked this a lot, on a change of name, you don't actually get a change of PBS approval number. So your number will continue. You will, of course, need to get new labels because your name will have been updated. If you've recently ordered a heap of labels and you've got a bit of a stash, you can sometimes ask the department for permission to use the old labels for a period of time, but otherwise you should be updating those. As I mentioned, failure to notify the relevant regulators of the change of name of the pharmacy won't only lead to financial penalty under the relevant legislation, but it might also cause delays or confusion if this goes on the back burner and then you go to sell the business and the records held with the regulators don't actually accord to how the business is being operated or the name it's being operated under. So always make sure that you're compliant with your regulatory requirements and also the requirements of the business name legislation that applies in your relevant state. If you're not sure what legislation that is or how to register your business name or how to lodge these regulatory applications, of course seek independent legal advice, and that is something we are most happy to assist with. So that's about change of name. There's also other requirements about changing details of your pharmacy. So if you change address, not because of a relocation, so if you change address, for example, because your landlord reorders the shop numbers in the centre or strip shop, or maybe the street name gets changed for some odd reason, anything like that, that needs to be notified to both the state and federal regulators. In addition, your phone number, email address, any changes to the details, in particularly the phone number, needs to be notified as well. So these are all really important things to keep in mind, that essentially whenever you're changing something relating to your business, you should make sure and check whether there is an obligation to notify about that change, and make sure you get onto that as soon as possible, because timeframes and penalties do apply. That's all for today. Hope that episode was of use. Look forward to catching you next time.